Okay, so now I'm the Bollywood in me is going to come out. Okay, a little bit.
Uh-huh.
There's this Priyanka Chopra Jonas Bollywood song. It's called Tinka Tinka. Okay,
Okay.
and that plays in my head in slow mo every time I see Tinka Tanberg because it's a song about your life being filled by light. And I that's how I feel about Spurs right now. Okay, it was so dark for the entirety of last season.
Hello, everyone. You're watching All About the W, your weekly deep dive into the WSL. Stats, stories, and standout performances. We will break it all down. I'm Kai, and as always, I'm joined by Ash.
Hi everyone.
Hey, Ash, you must be on cloud nine after this weekend.
Yeah, I mean I've been sick, but I could not care less because I football is more important than my body.
Football is more important than life, apparently.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone, this is all about the match day. This is where we break down all the WSL games from the previous weekend. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. If you're a regular, don't forget to hit that like button and do comment below on all the happenings in the WSL. Ash, let's get started because this was a very, very exciting game week in a lot of ways, right? Like, I feel like most of the games and the score lines kind of reflect this as well, but most of the games are pretty evenly poised, like teams are evenly matched in who they were facing. But yeah, a lot of implications for the title race, etc. So let's get started with a very probably the most important outcome in some ways in the title race of the weekend: Manchester City versus Arsenal, finishing 3-2. Man City finally beating Arsenal at home. It's been a while. um, Bunny Shaw scoring in the 36th minute, Kirsten Kasperai scoring in the 61st, and Iman Bene with the winner in the 88th minute. That's all for Man City. Mariona Caldente equalized in the 46th minute, and Chloe Kelly equalized in the 83rd minute with a worldie of a goal and a bit of a bad tap and whatnot. Ash, let's talk a little bit about this game because it was so much fun, like from a tactical perspective, and also just the fact that it was a goal fest as well. Tell me what you thought.
I predicted that this game would either be a goal fest or a total mess, but never boring. And I was absolutely right.
Yeah,
We got a 5 goal thriller with absolute scenes. Like this game
yeah,
had everything. An absolutely stellar Kasparai performance, teaming up with a finally informed Bunny Shaw.
yeah,
City giving Caldente space in the box. Don't know what that's about. Arsenal in sixes and sevens, passing out from the back. Chloe Kelly baiting the City fans by scoring a cracking goal and then literally making out with the Arsenal badge.
yeah.
And like Bene coming in as a substitute and getting a goal scoring opportunity on her first touch and eventually scoring later on. Just absolute scenes this game was. And I have to say, City could have scored more, but Arsenal were really fortunate at halftime to be
Yeah.
only 1 goal down.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed that up pretty brilliantly, to be fair. I mean, what a game, right? It was, yeah, it was crazy. It was also raining, just to add
Yeah.
to it was like a complete storm, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, to add to like the drama of it all. But Ash, let's start with the lineup, right? I mean, we saw some changes, especially from an Arsenal perspective, and City also bringing in Jade Rose. But what did you make of the changes that both teams made?
So I reckon dropping Katie Reed was a mistake for Arsenal. Like City were going on the counter, and Reed is much faster than Moy. Actually, honestly, Williamson out. I reckon uh, Arsenal should have gone into the market for a centre back because nobody has the predictive experience of a Williamson, and I think we've been feeling that absence literally from the start of the season.
Yeah,
And uh, and I thought Olivia Smith had a rather mixed bag of a game. She was great progressing the ball, but crap at converting. And I think she's developed a few habits from being Liverpool's only goal threat because she doesn't hold up play to cross it in, and she goes on her own. In a team like Arsenal, where there are more prolific goal scorers than you, that's a crime. I'm sorry. Like I hope her teammates knock sense into her head early.
yeah.
Otherwise, I think that maybe she shouldn't have deserved the start.
I think, I mean, not to speak like Olivia Smith, I think it's going to take her some time to get used to, because I feel like so far in all the teams that she's played, she's been that star player in some ways, like somebody who's just a goal threat. So yeah, I think it's going to take her a little while, and it's important that she learns that lesson because yeah, you just have like really good finishers all over the pitch, so you need to do that. But from like an Arsenal standpoint, I think that decision, and I think I read something Tim Stillman had written, basically saying that bringing in Ruben Moy was to do that job of taking care of Bunny Shaw, because
Yeah.
she's done that very well in the past.
Not this
I think,
game.
yeah, I think the only issue here is that Ruben Moy has not played football in a long time,
Yeah.
and you're basically throwing her to the wolves in some ways. I don't think that was fair. I think we spoke. I don't know if we spoke about it a little bit on camera, but definitely off camera, we did have a conversation about how excited we are to see Katie Reed go up against Bunny Shaw, really like a proper test for her. Unfortunately, we did not see that happen. But the other thing I think is how much Arsenal have been struggling with like ball progression without Leah Williamson. And that's the other thing Tim Silman had flagged off. And probably having Ruben Moy there was also to resolve that issue, because she is good with her feet. She can play some good line breaking passes and such. So I feel like it was like a two pronged reason, so to speak, for bringing in Ruben Moy. One of those prongs definitely broke down.
No, but Kai, like if that is the case and you recognize that you have a distribution problem without Williamson there, then play Woburn Moy versus Villa. Like why are you like throwing her to the wolves in the City game when you know that that problem exists and you can address it earlier. Like I
Yeah.
do feel like Renee Slegger's her inexperience wasn't showing as much last season, but this season you can see the inexperience. You can see that things decisions are not being made on time, and like it's taking a while to get to your perfect 11
Yeah.
simply because of that, and it's costing her points.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. I think like Ruben Moy, she's been sitting on the bench as well for quite some time, and she did not play many minutes of the Euro. So it's been a long time since she's played football, and I don't think she was preferred last season either. So um, I mean, you know what your fixture list looks like. You already have, like, it's not like Katie Reed had a bad performance for her to be dropped, which means you've been thinking about putting Ruben Moy on for like a couple of weeks at least. So then, like, why not give her more minutes? If not, start her against whoever it was they played against last Villa. Yeah, it was
Villa,
Villa,
Villa.
that draw to Villa. Because she came on very late and Arsenal kind of immediately conceded after she came on. So all those things are not good signs for a player. Like, you're a defender coming onto the pitch against a team like Villa, you've held on for like 80 minutes and then you end up conceding. Like, I'm sure as a defender you feel like shit when that happens. But let's talk about the other defensive change that was made in this match, which is Jade Rose coming in. What did you make of her performance?
Honestly, I thought that, like Jade Rose did have a few iffy moments, like a few loose passes here and there, and difficult to deal with that Arsenal press when they actually want to play press. But she made up for it with a few really good clearances, and on the whole, I think she held up well against what is effectively one of the. I mean, I know people don't believe that right now, considering their lack of goals. As in their draws, but one of the best attacks in the league. And I'd
Yeah.
like to see more of Rose as she settles in and understands her teammates.
Mhm.
So yeah, selection wise, I think there's a player in there definitely for City, and I think she give her a little bit more time, and that City backline will start looking better with her in it. I think she's better than Pryor.
Yeah, you know what? I think Jade Rose needs to get a little more used to the physicality of the league, because I do think she got bumped off the ball a couple of times. But what I did really like is her progressive passing. I thought she was really. I mean, I have not seen Jade Rose play a lot, but her distribution actually looked really something, because sometimes, with just Greenwood there in that back line, City can seem like a one trick pony. When you have two center backs who can both pass, do some cross field passes as well. I think one of the, I think, for the goal or a big chance that was created, I remember Jade Rose playing the ball long with her weaker foot as well, just getting out of the press pretty comfortably. So yeah, like you said, it was a bit iffy at times, but I was very impressed with some of her long balls. I think there's definitely a player in there. But
Yeah.
yeah, can I just say a word on Fujino? Like, I know you
Yeah.
want to talk about a few other players, but I just want to like take a sec. For me, I know she didn't have like goal contributions as such, but I thought Fujino was brilliant on the day. Like, just her energy. I feel like she was absolutely cooking. She was everywhere on the pitch, by the way. This is a winger who's just all over the pitch. And she was winning the ball back. She brought a lot of energy. And, you know, like when Jess Park left City, the only thing I was worried about in that City squad is that I felt like maybe there's a dip of energy, and I feel like Fujino 100% makes up for that with probably with better decision making. I feel like this was one of those weeks where Jess Park obviously played really well against Chelsea for United, but her final decision making was a bit off here and there, and we'll talk about that a little more. When I see a player like Fujino, I feel like her decision making is also extremely, like, at least it's growing a lot. And yeah, very exciting player to watch. I was super impressed.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like Fujino has become City's primary creator,
Hmm.
which I did not foresee. Like I thought that role would belong to like Miedema or him, or maybe Yui coming forward as she's done the last few games. But I'm happy to be pleasantly surprised. And it really helps that Blinkilda Brown and Fujino kind of play on the same side of like the middle
Yeah.
wing area,
Hmm.
because the two of them are really linking up well. And like Blinkilda Brown knows that all she needs to do is like get the ball to Fujino, and then Fujino will progress it through the tight spaces,
Yeah.
through the defense, get it across, and once it's across, you just need to like hand it to like Kasparai or somebody to
Yeah.
like cross
Cross
it
it
in.
in.
That was the story of the first goal. Like,
Hmm. Oh, the first
so
goal, man. Like, I'm sorry, like, I know, like, we should probably give City some credit, but my God, how switched off was that back line? Like, and the pass from Fujino wasn't great. Like, it was, I mean, honestly, when she played that ball through, I genuinely thought that's just going to be like, the weight was all off, and it was just dribbling, like bobbling across very slowly. And I was like, oh, that's the chance gone. And then Kasparai comes flying in. Nobody's marking Kasparai. And I'm just like, why are you so switched off? It was quite bad. I think I don't know who was supposed to track Kasparai, probably whoever Ford was on the left wing. Maybe she should have tracked her run, but wow, that goal, that was a cheap goal to concede, in my opinion. Like the whole play, the passage of play, I think Arsenal would be kicking themselves for allowing that cross to come in more than anything else.
yeah, and like honestly, even like who, I do not know who was responsible. I know Ruben was supposed to be responsible for Bunny Shaw. Bunny Shaw was like, there was a corner which Bunny Shaw had took four defenders out. Like, and like I am not even kidding you. I'm just wondering what they were doing. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing. Like especially like from a defensive standpoint, I do think Arsenal feel very
And
disappointed. I mean,
passing out from the back, like, I'm
oof,
sorry to like interrupt you, but
yeah.
like passing out from the back, they were, for the first half of that game, they were absolutely atrocious. Like,
Hmm.
they could not get the ball out of City's press. It was, and credit to City for pressing, but honestly, they weren't even pressing that hard. Like, Arsenal was just losing the ball all on their own.
Yeah. All right, Ash, you wanted to spend a few minutes talking about Kirsten Kasparov, your new
Oh
hero.
God, Casper, I had said in the preview that of the City back four, Casper is the only one I trust, really, even including Greenwood,
Yeah.
and I am so right on that, because Casper, I mean, is there anything Kasparai cannot do? Like throwing crosses in with the perfect weight. Then there was that goal that she scored where it was just a scuffle in the box that she
Yeah.
won, and like like she was just
And
everywhere.
she
Like,
even scored that goal that was like
offside
called
goal, yeah.
offside. Yeah.
And honestly, if there was VAR, that would have been really close because it was offside on the halfway line where like her foot was just ahead of the last defender and the Arsenal defender was standing like on the line almost.
Oh,
And
but I thought the offside happened in the 6 yard box
no, so that's what
because she
everyone
was
thought.
definitely offside in the 6 yard box.
No, that's what everyone thought. But it was called for the original pass when it was coming in for the run
Okay.
on the halfway line. That's what everybody thought. Even the commentators thought that. And then they showed the replay and they realized, oh, wait, she was offside to begin with.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay, okay. Mhm.
So it was so that offside, it was a very marginal offside,
Mhm.
okay. And I have a feeling with VAR that that would have been really tough, like hardly contested. So
Yeah.
I genuinely think maybe there would have been like another goal there for Casper. I anyway,
Yeah.
and like that, like the 1-2 between the two of them, between like Bunny Shaw and Casper, amazing to watch. I'm so happy about this. And like not only that, but Kasparai defensively also was just keeping like track of everything.
Mhm.
I was
She was
impressed.
fully bombing up and down. Like she's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
honestly, it's really nice to see Kasparai in such a role because like until last season you saw Kasparai being like slightly more conservative. Of course, she would make those overlapping runs for sure, but I feel like it's maybe she's also growing as a player, if that makes sense. Like she's like if you remember last season, she was definitely one of those players we thought of as one of the better players in that right back positions in the whole league. But of
yeah,
course, like City had a crap season, so we didn't talk about her much. But she's again like somebody who gives a seven every game, and it's good to
yeah,
see her pushing up. In terms of like the intensity of the performance, but also
yeah.
like delivering, like getting on the score sheet, providing assists, all of it. I mean, it's a really good sign for Man
Yeah,
City.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, yeah. One small thing I forgot to mention is that you had Pelova in the midfield and you had Caldente playing that 10. I you know I know a lot of people are in favor of Caldente being in that 10 role. But I genuinely feel with her ball playing, ball progressing abilities, in this game she would have been much more useful deeper into the midfield as she was all of last season. Pelova was good, don't get me wrong, Pelova didn't have a bad game.
Yeah.
And I thought Pelova was doing what was expected of her well.
Hmm.
I just feel like they I feel like Caldente, I know everyone wants her to play that 10 and she has the technical ability to play literally anywhere in the midfield. Maybe not CDM, but everything else.
Yeah.
But in fact, she can play winger, she can play midfielder, like she can pick her position. She's just
Mm.
great. But like, I genuinely feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I wonder if Arsenal might consider switching to like a 4-4-2 or something
Yeah.
at some point, like maybe playing both. I don't know, whoever, like Smith and Russo up top or Manam and Russo up top. I feel like there are a few different combinations that they might want to consider, but yeah, I'm not really sure if they'll switch to that formation. But I would like to see something like that for Arsenal.
Anyway, moving on to United versus Chelsea, which ended 1-1. Captain scored in the 9th minute, and then Sandberg scored a stellar goal in the 20th minute. Uh, Kai, are you disappointed with this performance? I thought it was a good game by both teams.
I am not disappointed. Going into the game, I was pretty convinced that Chelsea were going to lose, and not just because I'm such a cynic. It's also because of how well United have been performing, and I feel like my fears were kind of. I mean, proved right in some ways, but also with the performance that Chelsea put up, I really thought towards the end we might actually nick all 3 points. But overall, like you said, like it was a very evenly matched game of football. I felt like United were very good in the first half in their counter attacks, and early on in the second half, they did look pretty threatening. To me, they had a game plan and they executed it really well. Chelsea, on the other hand, I feel like again, it was one of Chelsea's better performances this season, because we have been talking a little bit about how lackluster, maybe not lackluster, but how um, like chaotic Chelsea look from time to time, right? Not having control over games and things like that. But you know, I'll start with United. I'll say, like, I'm really impressed with the way they're playing. You know, they were hungry in this game compared to that game against Arsenal. Like, their counter attacks, especially through Park and Riviere on that right hand side, it was super impressive. And you know, like, the funny thing was Chelsea were overloading United's like left hand side, and United were happy to let Chelsea do that. And of course, like, Chelsea's goal comes from that, like causing forcing some turnovers on that left hand side. But at the same time, like, their outball was in Park and Riviere, right? So they were happy to have Chelsea, like, let Chelsea have that ball on that side and switch play very quickly. And many a times, what we saw was just like, see, like, Park or Riviere running with the ball. It was very similar to what happened in that game against Villa. You know, there was so much happening on that left hand side, Villa's left hand side, that is. And then, like, Grant would get the ball and she would have like half the football pitch in front of her, and that was very similar in this game. So I was very impressed with that. This is probably the most even game I've seen between United and Chelsea. Like, you know, there have been a, like, at least in the WSL, you know, like, there have been a lot of 1-0 wins for Chelsea over the years. And in all those games, Chelsea were completely in control of the game. And I feel like this is one of the games where I felt like United had more control. Um, but yeah, I think what we see United doing really well now is, you know, I feel like if they can start taking their chances a little better, they will really, cause a lot of problems for a lot of different teams. But what we see them do really well is just defend their box really well, right? We see them do that in the last 15 minutes. I feel like by about 70-75 minute mark, you could see that United were tiring, and they were like, okay, Chelsea can have the ball now. We're just gonna make sure we don't concede, which is very important. I mean, those are the kinds of performances that can win you the title, you know. And I'm really like impressed with the way they're doing that.
Yeah, yeah, same here. Because, like, I was harsh with United for that draw against Arsenal because I felt like they could have done more. They could have tried to win that game. But in this draw, I genuinely feel like they put, like, I'm like, you can never be hard on a team that tries their best and then draws. And
Yeah.
I think that was the case here, which is why I very much think it was a hard fought draw, and it is the kind of draw that can win you the title. So I think United would be very, very happy with their performance in this
Mhm.
game as opposed to the Arsenal game. Who do you think were, like, for United and Chelsea, the best players, key performers?
I felt like United had a few more than Chelsea did. Like I said, Park and Riviere were very impressive. I want to see Park make better decisions in the final third, because there were a couple of times when she could have laid the ball off and she took the shot, and sometimes she was supposed to like take the shot, but she passed instead. So, you know, that decision making. Hopefully, she develops that, because I do feel like that she's going to have that role of just running with the ball and uh, like, you know, pushing the attack forward. So she needs to get better at that, and I think she will. Leticia was impressive, and of course, like, you know how much I love Zigiotti, and I feel like that Zigiotti Miyazawa midfield has become so crucial to them, for to like United controlling games. I feel like, they're physical, they're good at pressing and like forcing turnovers, and they were very impressive. For Chelsea, I would say probably Macario. I was a bit surprised, because I feel like Aggie Beaver Jones has been doing well as a striker. So I thought it was a weird decision to push her out wide, and start Macario centrally. But we know what Macario offers. We saw her hold up play. She is so good with that, and like, turning in very tight spaces, linking up play, all of that. She's very good, and like, captain also looks good for me. She plays in that 10 role, which I'm not really sure. I don't see her offering the creativity we need
Yeah.
in that 10 role, but she's still young. Hopefully, she like gets there. But yeah, I mean, Bompasso clearly has a lot of faith in her, and to be honest, she has like 4 goal contributions this season, like 2 goals,
Yeah.
2 assists. So I don't know if I should be complaining about it. Um,
Honestly, I feel like Sonia Bompastor hates me personally because, Aggie, as soon as she starts scoring well and stuff, and I buy her for my fantasy
no,
team,
I told you not to do it. That's a jinx. Don't do
moves
it.
moves her to winger where she'll get less opportunities.
Yeah, and
And
I
like,
felt like Aggie couldn't get into the game at all.
yeah,
Like
I
I
mean,
thought,
she did try her best. I thought that she didn't have a bad, like what she was given. I thought she did her brief, like she accomplished her brief.
yeah,
Uh,
and also shout out to Talis Joyce as well. I felt like there were like 2 or 3 really good
yeah,
saves
yeah,
from
yeah.
her.
Really good saves, yeah.
Yeah, and
And
defensively also, Leticia was really good. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Sorry.
also,
Continue.
like Carpenter doesn't play last game and then plays this game. Like, I'm expecting her not to play this game. Get rid of her on my fantasy. Then anyway,
Oh
she did get
God.
many points. It's
Anyway,
fine.
I'll tell you my fantasy story. All right. So I'm not sure if Sandberg is gonna start, so I bench her. She gets 11 points,
Oh
right?
my god.
And then I am so angry because I think my backline, all 3 of them are starters. But Sorensen doesn't start Pacheco. He starts Kitagawa instead, and
Oh,
I'm
same
like,
thing happened to
oh,
me.
and then he subs Pacheco on, and then she gets a yellow. Like, get
Yeah.
it together, man. What is
Yeah.
happening? Anyway, just final thoughts. And also, Nuskin has signed a new contract, which I'm very excited about. I feel like, she looked really good when she came on, and like she brings a lot of energy to that Chelsea midfield. She's fallen out of favor a little bit with Bompasso. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, I think like I said earlier, like Chelsea's off the ball work was not very good, and United won a lot of duels and like they executed their game plan really well. So credit to them. I don't think either of the teams will be too upset with that 1 point that they've got. Okay, Ash, the time has finally come. Um, we are going to spend a good chunk of time praising the mighty Tottenham Hotspur. All right, Spurs beating Brighton 1-0. Tanberg scoring in the 26th minute. Okay, I know this was. I mean, I'll let you speak about this game a little bit, and then I'll add my 2 cents when I can.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to wax lyrical. Please, I apologize. I know this. Nobody tunes into this channel to listen to commentary about
Hey,
Brighton and
no,
Spurs.
no, don't say that. We want more Spurs fans and Brighton
Yes,
fans. Come on.
yes, please. Okay, let's start with the obvious. Okay, Brighton deserved a penalty. Some would say Brighton deserved two penalties, but I
Hmm.
reckon they deserved just the first one.
Yeah,
Koga, bless her heart, knew exactly what she was doing.
she just
19-year-old.
fell underneath.
But I still think Spurs were the better team and deserved to win. And I reckon if we had to, we could have scored another goal.
Hmm.
So, and okay, so now the Bollywood in me is going to come out, okay, a little bit.
Uh-huh.
There's this Priyanka Chopra Jonas Bollywood song. It's called Tinka Tinka, okay?
Okay.
And that plays in my head in slow mo every time I see Tinka Tanberg because it's a song about your life being filled by light. And that's how I feel about Spurs right now. Okay. It was so dark for the entirety of last season. Like,
Yeah.
I have a deep resentment of Brighton because Brighton under Vidushik is what I thought Spurs, how I thought Spurs would kick off under Rob
Yeah.
last season. And like this game, that's why it gives me like a double amount of joy simply because it's Brighton who we are defeating and with a different style of play than what someone like Rob was bringing. And like Tanberg being there also takes the pressure away from England to score,
Yeah.
so England can contribute other things. Like this is a new lease of life for England as well. Like as she settles into a 10 role, and like honestly, she's so technically gifted. I would play her anywhere on the pitch, like except
Yeah.
maybe back. I think
Yeah.
England could, like if I could clone like 4 or 5 more Englands, I would. Would be all. But yeah, so I'm happy that pressure is off of England because
Hmm.
now if she wants to score, she will. But even if she doesn't, there are other people who could score. Like even Naz, I thought uh gave the assist for the Tanberg goal, and I thought Naz had a few really good runs.
Hmm.
I still would like to see Naz do a better shot of converting her runs into goals.
Hmm.
But I do think that she's the way that Ho has them set up. It suits Naz better than
Yeah,
the way Rob had them set up. And Summonin and Spence. Can we talk about how criminally underrated those
yeah,
two are? Like, especially Summonin, but in this game, like, Spence had a better game, maybe, but like, especially Summonin. Like, she had a free kick that was nearly a goal.
yeah,
Plus, she and Spence like just bossed that midfield.
yeah,
Like, how many teams can claim such a steady midfielder who can defend but also progress the ball and be good on the dead ball? Like,
yeah,
criminally underrated, both of them, because they were playing in a system that didn't suit their strengths, And when they finally have a system that suits them, especially off the ball, and like off the ball, I hate to say this, but Spurs off the ball are almost Skinner like. I can see why Ho was an assistant manager there,
yeah.
because they are off the ball, they're very Skinner like. They'll double up on opponents and they will boss the midfield while not having the ball.
Hmm.
It's joyous to watch, but also I appreciate the fact that Ho is more ambitious on the ball than Skinner. So with the entire team kind of bombing forward,
Yeah,
so I do feel like that suits us better than a slightly more conservative on the ball approach. So yeah, I'm really happy with Ho right now. Like, third on the table probably isn't sustainable for us. Eventually, I think we would probably, like, the rational mind in me is saying that we will probably drop off and end up sixth or seventh or something.
yeah,
But honestly, like, I'm just it's just nice to see an organized sport. And like, in the WSL, I genuinely feel like if you just have a decent quality of players and you organize yourself well, you're never going to be less than mid-table.
yeah. I completely agree. I was watching that Spurs Brighton game, and the first thought I had was like at halftime, I think Spurs were 1-0 up at halftime, right? And I thought, okay, Brighton are definitely going to nick a point here because Spurs of last season would have definitely bottled that lead because they were simply not organized enough. And I see the difference. I see how every player is willing to put their body on the line to ensure that the ball doesn't progress. Like I loved how compact they stayed. I really liked how I think the commentator repeatedly kept saying how Spurs were preventing the ball going out to wide areas, to Kafaji or to Seke, and that's actually a really good game plan against Brighton because we know how dangerous Kafaji can be. Even in this game, I feel like whenever she
Yeah,
got the
there was
ball,
that
she looked.
one time, no, when Kafaji got through to the box.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it was a really, again, well executed game plan. And I mean, they're pressing so well. I'm honestly scared about Chelsea's facing Spurs next game
Oh,
because,
no, no, we're not now nowhere near that level. I
no, no, no.
mean,
I'm not saying, like, I feel like it's going to be a terrifying game because, like, we know how poor Chelsea can be when, especially our back line is pressed a little bit. But
yeah.
I feel like that's going to be an exciting game and we'll probably
Hey,
preview
I
that.
mean, I'll be wearing a Chelsea kit. So,
Yeah,
coming
that's
to,
true. Yeah.
sorry, I haven't talked about Brighton. Like, coming to Brighton, I think they really missed Kirby. Plus, I get the feeling that Ajuman will get there someday, but it's expecting too much from her to be their primary striker.
Mhm.
When they lost Parish, they should have replaced her with someone with experience who can share that responsibility with Ajuman.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like, yeah, I feel like there is a bit of, there are technical qualities that she still needs to develop. Like for me, the biggest issue that I see with Ajamang is her inability to make a good pass. Like hold up play means nothing if you can't lay the ball off to a teammate, to progress the ball. Like uh, I think right now that is the most frustrating thing that I'm seeing in Ajimang because she does have the physicality to hold up the ball, but then what does she do with the ball after? And I feel like she needs to get better at that. And I do think, like, I fully see Brighton shopping in Jan to get a slightly more experienced striker because I don't think this right now is going to cut it. And I mean, I said in like last week as well, like Brighton with and without Kirby is just completely different. That said, I do think the midfield worked better this game than it did for that one half when Brighton played without Kirby against Man City. I felt like this game they managed the game a little better.
To
And
be
yeah,
fair, they
Brighton.
were not facing Man City.
Yeah, they were not facing Man City, but also I feel like, yeah, I mean, maybe they had time to adjust. Like Nordum had come in and she probably knew what she was going to do. So that clarity might have also helped. Brighton could have nicked the point. I think they will be a bit disappointed. And of course, like they can definitely feel hard done by not getting that penalty. And that ref was really bad. This ref
Yeah,
was
yeah, terrible
like
referee.
just
Everything
terrible
was bad
refing.
about that refereeing,
Yeah.
including like the calls on the fouls and things like that. Everything was
Yeah,
just
it was very sus. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
I don't know if I don't remember encountering this ref before, but he just was a little bit clueless. Moving on to LCL versus Liverpool, which ended 1-0 to LCL. I was the only person I know who called this win for LCL. Um, but Linari scored a maybe a little sus penalty in the 89th minute.
Yeah.
Speaking of sus penalties in the from the last game, uh,
Yeah.
Kai, how did you feel about this game?
I'll talk a little bit about the penalty a bit later, but like I kind of enjoyed watching this game, especially the
Yeah,
first half was like it was very even. I thought Liverpool pressed LCL really well. Like they moved together as a unit. Sometimes with Liverpool, what you see is that when they do press, there's like a massive gap between like their midfield and their back line, and I felt uh, like Taylor sort of adjusted that a little bit in this game, and I thought they were pressing really well. And we've seen teams get a lot of joy doing that, especially. The London City Lionesses back line sometimes tends to struggle with the ball at their feet when being pressed. And um, yeah, I mean, credit to London City Lionesses as well. Like they basically weathered that storm in that first half, and well, granted, it was a very fortuitous penalty that they got, but they were the better side in the second half. So I don't think Liverpool can complain too much, but at the same time, Liverpool are also at the bottom of the table. So that penalty call was okay. I'll talk about the penalty now. It was so bad, man. It was so bad. Like Borgrafe went for the ball, Paris went for the ball, and then Paris kicks Borgrafe in her thigh and then rolls around. I don't know why she rolled around. Not Borgrafe, by the way, not the one who
yeah,
received the
yeah,
kick. The one who gave
yeah,
the kick was
yeah.
rolling around, and then Heaslip gives a penalty, and I'm like, how on earth is that a penalty? It was just a terrible
Oh,
call. Like
you know,
fully Paris fully like charged into Borgrafe, and that was a foul on Borgrafe, 100%.
yeah, I'm just tired of the refereeing in the WSL, because I just want to like talk about the games without being like, oh, the ref really like changed the result. And who knows if they both teams had been nil-nil, maybe they would have played a different way, and maybe the result would have been different, or maybe the
Yeah,
result would have been the same because LCL would have continued to press.
yeah.
Who knows? Like I don't know the result eventually, but I think that it ruins the game when you do things like this. I'm just I you know I'm not pro VAR. I'm definitely not pro VAR, but the WSL makes me want to become. Like it's the only league. Like I don't feel this about even the Champions League refs and stuff. I just feel this about the refereeing in the WSL.
I can't imagine what VAR looks like in the hands of like people, like the aptitude of and the
Oh yeah,
capabilities
there's
of people
another
in the
that.
WSL.
Yeah.
I am not sure if that is a good solution because, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that. I mean, like, listen. The point is that these are teams potentially that are going to fight relegation,
Yeah.
and these are moments that are going to have massive implications
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
where
But
everybody finishes.
you know what? I'm really upset by the fact that we're categorizing Liverpool as a team that might be fighting relegation. Because that just shows me like LCL, despite the fact that they've invested a lot. Yes, they have a brand new team, and yes, they're bringing this new system, like this new ownership system to the WSL. All of that I will give them, but there's still a new team into the WSL.
Yeah.
Liverpool is a team like a consistent, fourth, fifth, sixth team. It's a like a heavyweight in the WSL. They
Yeah,
should not. They should not be like LCL should not walk away from that game looking like maybe the better side, which
that
is
is
what it
true.
is.
Like I do agree from like a like big picture perspective. I get it. I get like Liverpool are absolutely down in the dumps right now. And to be fair to Taylor, I do feel like he did switch up the way they were playing a little bit. They were trying to go a bit more direct, uh, rather than playing like, like there wasn't too much lateral passing, which I do like give credit for. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. I mean, the fact that they've not invested, I feel like a lot of teams like West Ham and Leicester and all get a lot of stick for not investing well enough. And I feel like Liverpool is a team that kind of gets away with not doing that. And yeah, I think they absolutely need to be called out. And hopefully we'll see a bit different, like a bit of a difference,
Yeah.
mm, in the second half. Hopefully, I do think they will shop in the winter, because I mean, for me, the concerns that I have around Liverpool is just that, like, I don't want to pile on, but Mia Enderby is just not enough to be that target player. Um, she's such a frustrating player to watch, Ash. Like, she was offside three times, three very good chances where all she needed to do was hold the run and finish. Not super simple, but it should be bread and butter for a striker. I know she's only 20 years old, but at the same time, like, if her age and her inexperience is a problem, then get a better striker. Get somebody she can grow alongside. Like, this is, it's just super frustrating. And I think a bright spark potentially for Liverpool is that Hobinger is back, and you can instantly see that, like, increase in quality in that midfield, in the way they press. And of course, she's very good from like dead ball situations. So
Yeah, and
uh,
shots from distance as well, I think.
yeah, so I think Liverpool, it is a concern. And I know we've joked a bit about Taylor getting sacked and all that, but I mean, for their sake, I do hope they shop in Jan and don't sack Taylor just yet. You
Yeah,
know.
I don't think their club can take the upheaval of another sacking right now.
Hmm.
I would, because I just don't think the players are good. Like, I don't think even if a manager came in, set them up defensively, and got a few points here and there, that would be a stopgap measure because the players need to be improved upon.
I
Like,
honestly feel like,
forwards need to be improved
yeah,
upon.
I think one striker and one winger, that's enough. That's all they need to put together a good starting 11. But
Yeah.
anyway, I feel like we've spoken far too long about LCL versus Liverpool. Let's move on to West Ham versus Villa, which finished 2-0 to Villa. Kirsty Hansen, as always, scoring bangers in the 60th minute, and Lynn Will scoring in the 67th minute. Ash, tell me about this game. And yeah, maybe I want to hear a little bit about what you think about West Ham as well, but you do it at your own pace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try and be quick because I know we've been on for a while. So, like, this game was a snooze fest. Both teams were so glacial on the ball. I was practically begging them to develop some urgency. Villa had a few chances in the first half, like half chances. Daly had one. It was anyone's game till halftime. Second half, I thought was a lot more fun. Both teams came on with some fire in their bellies, and we have to talk about Kirsty Hansen. Like, she earned a well-deserved start in this game after her performance against Arsenal, partly down to her form and partly down to the unfortunate ACL rupture that Byings got in the Arsenal game. But as unfortunate as Byings' injury is, I think Arroyo accidentally stumbled upon her strongest playing 11 as a consequence. Like, I also have to eat my words about Daly being further up because I thought she was very good in that deeper role. And Salman also had a really good game despite not scoring. Some great runs in there. And we have to talk about Wilms. Wilms, what a revelation Wilms is. And that free kick that for that goal was absolutely stellar. I did
Yeah.
not know she had that in her locker. To be fair, I haven't seen much of her, but I did not know she had that in her locker. What a transfer she's turning out to be. Absolutely stellar. Okay, West Ham. Martinez needs to be better in front of goal. Like, you cannot sky opportunities when there's so few and far between, especially when
Yeah.
we know Martinez is capable of scoring those. And Villa, they basically marked Asai all through the game, with Kendall just bringing her down to earn a yellow in the 54th minute when it wasn't working. And everyone knows now, if you stop Asai, you stop West Ham. I mean, yeah, Gori had a shot on target and stuff, but like, really, if you stop, like, it's like save the cheerleader, save the world. Stop Asai, stop West Ham.
Yeah, I mean that is really concerning, and like, you know that's a lot of losses for West Ham.
Yeah.
I don't know when Ryan Skinner is going to get the sack. I suspect it's going to be
You
soon.
know what? Oddly, I will say this, because of their lack of ambition. Their lack of ambition would be a thing, where they would be like, "Oh, in January we'll shore up and we'll get through again."
Hmm.
Uh, but this season, because relegation is far less likely, I have a feeling that there will be less sackings this season than last season, simply because, no, like last season, a lot of teams were in danger, and so they all suddenly like proactively change managers and stuff like that to stay.
Yeah.
This season, everyone will be like, we'll stay, we'll win a playoff,
That's
so
a good shout, actually. I mean, it would be really interesting to see how this turns out because, I mean, I think, if you're not sacking managers for results but just for staying in the league, then I feel like, by December we'll see where different teams are at, and I feel like we'll really get a very clear picture of where different clubs are at, from like a women's team perspective. Because, I mean, like, I was looking at Liverpool's fixture list, by the way. It was it's really funny because they have some really tough matches coming up. So they're going to play Man City, Spurs, Brighton, Chelsea, Arsenal, and West Ham. That's their like fixture list next. So they're playing Man
uh,
City, Chelsea,
yeah, till
and
Arsenal it's
Arsenal,
hard.
and Spurs and Brighton are looking decent. So like they have a tough few matches coming up. So yeah, I think a bunch of teams are in trouble, and I feel like how they shop. And if you're saying they're not going to sack their managers, it's very like there is a real possibility that they may not even shop in Jan.
Yeah.
So then I feel like we'll get a very clear picture of where the different clubs' ambitions are at from like a women's team perspective for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I will throw a fit if Spurs does not invest in Jan. Anyway, Leicester versus Everton ended
You
1-1.
sound
When
greedy, Ash.
what do you mean by greedy? I mean, I respect the fact that Martin Ho has taken a decent Spurs team and made them third. Like,
Mhm.
but it two signings. People literally signing like 10 players and stuff. Like, I'm not asking for 10 players, but I'm saying at least three, two,
Yeah.
maybe anything.
Yeah, I feel like
One.
there are definitely parts of the pitch that needs a bit more depth,
Yeah,
yeah, for
like
sure.
what if any of these, like, we have our bench is so sad. Like, what if any of these players, Beth England gets injured, there is no Cam. There is
Yeah.
no Cam. Like, I love Kit, but Kit is no Cam. Like,
Hmm.
not of the quality that Beth England is offering. Anyway,
Right.
sorry. Coming
Yeah.
back to, so sorry for bringing the conversation back to Spurs. Anyway, Leicester versus Everton 1-1. Vignola in the 51st minute and Mouchon in the 81st minute. Uh, I think Everton might be disappointed. Leicester will be happy.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like, I mean, the Everton did score their goal a bit out of nowhere. And I mean, I'm glad Vignola scored a goal because, after that hat trick in the first match against Liverpool, I feel like it's been a bit of a dry spell for her. So, interesting setup from Sorensen for sure. Uh, from a Leicester perspective, I feel like they have Rantala back, which is a very, very good sign. But the goal that Vignola scored, man, the Leicester defending was god awful in that. Like there was miscommunication in the back line. It was a bit of like a moment of flair from Vignola as well. Like she tried to sort of kick it over the defender and run forward. But I mean, listen, one thing I'll say about Vignola is that she is an excellent finisher. You can tell, when defenders put pressure on strikers, like you can just tell who are the strikers who are just like naturally just good in front of goal, and who are the strikers who are not. And I feel like Mignola is just one of them, one of those players who's just like confident enough to take that shot and probably has like the quality to put it in the back of the net. So really exciting player. For Leicester, Mushaw is back. We didn't see her last season because she obviously tore her ACL, I think, in the preseason. So she was absent for Leicester for the whole of last season. So she comes on the pitch and scores an equalizer. That must be a good feeling for Leicester. Because we know they can be organized but struggle to finish, struggle to score goals. That was a story last season. To some extent, that's their story this season as well. So I feel like maybe having Rantala back as well as having Musha, who I'm sure it'll take her a little while to get back into the flow of things. But I do think those are definitely some good signs for Leicester. Yeah, I mean, for Everton, I feel like they will be disappointed. I feel like they were a bit switched off. Mushaw had like a lot of space to run into. You can't leave that kind of gap, and she had a lot of space to run into. And I feel like with the quality that Everton have across the pitch, I feel like they do have a lot of quality across the pitch, like enough to finish at least in the top 7 or 8, but ideally in the top 6 and top half of the table. But yeah, with the quality they have and the squad depth that they have, they should have seen this game out. Uh, but overall, I don't think it's an unfair result. I do think Leicester had their moments and so did Everton. So I think 1-1 is probably a fair result.
Hey, they're both ahead of Liverpool. So
Yeah, that's true. All right. So that brings us to the end of All About the Match Day. We are going to be live for the Champions League game between Arsenal and
the
Lyon.
Arsenal game.
Yeah, Arsenal versus Lyon, which is I think happening at Meadow Park. And we found out yesterday that there is VAR in the group stages this time around, which is interesting. And I think we will be going live for sure in the weekend for the Chelsea versus Spurs game as well. So keep your eyes peeled. Do join us, and give us your thoughts. It'd be fun, to have a lot of people for the watch-alongs and have a conversation about the game. So do join us. But yeah, before we wrap up, once again, a reminder, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We're very close to that 500 mark. We are at about 479. So it'd be really cool for us to hit that 500 mark in terms of subscribers. And if you're a regular, do not forget to hit that like button. It'll help bring some visibility to the channel, and do comment below. Tell us what you thought about this weekend's fixture, and let us know if you have any questions for the next weekend. We'll answer some of the listener questions as well. Do leave those in the comments as well. Anyway, until the next video, it's bye bye from us.